Okay, welcome everyone. Um, there's a personality level of my being which always worries that I'm going to have nothing to say. And then there's a soul level of my being that says, "Can you just get out the way so I can do my thing?" So, so the first few minutes is me battling to get out the way. Actually, that my life is a testimony to that. Me battling to get out of the way. So let's start the practice by just taking a moment to kind of tune in. And what I'll do is I'll show you a practice that sometimes if I wake up in the early hours of the morning and can't get back to sleep, or sometimes when I just wake up in the morning, this is a practice that I like to do. Uh, Nothing I've been taught, like most of my practices, I've not been taught them on the outside, usually from the inside. So I call this practice in welcoming love. So I notice with my ADD, I have usually just a constant state of subtle anxiety in my nervous system. It's a great teacher for me. And so sometimes people see my meditation retreats when I'm holding space and they say, wow, you just sat in stillness all night. And then I want to say to them, wow, you should see the inside of my head. It's really not that. I'm just watching craziness going on, but I'm just maintaining the still calm center amongst it all. So it's my meditation teacher. It teaches me to find the peace, the alignment, even when things are crazy inside my emotions and my head. So this is a really beautiful embodiment practice that I like to do. So my embodiment practice is I call it receiving or accepting love. And it's nothing more complicated than it's a kind of a down-regulated practice, which means my invitation for you is just to relax. You can do this lying down, you can do it sat back, but just allow yourself to be in a state of peace. So, as I've pointed out before in previous weeks, we have two operating systems, like computer programs running. And Christian mysticism, they speak about one operating program is called being born of the flesh, and then one is called born of the spirit or born of the light. In other words, you know, the Buddha nature, the soul consciousness. And then the Buddha noticed that one of those operating systems, which he called unconsciousness, uh, leads to suffering if we put that in charge of our life. And then the other operating system leads out of suffering. So when we're doing these practices, we're upgrading the software. We're clearing out the viruses, and we're slowly allowing ourselves to become the image of and likeness of something that transcends us. So in that journey, sometimes metaphorically and sometimes literally for some people, it's called first stage is going up to the mountaintop. So going up to the mountaintop is an energetic experience. This means we awaken a subtle flow of energy through the spine, and this is the mountaintop. So you can go to India, go up a mountaintop, and not get to the mountaintop. Or you can sit in a flat in Gorton, stare at a radiator, and go to the mountaintop, as we were discussing earlier. But then we don't stay at the mountaintop, you know. So we have to come back to life, back to reality. So this is the descending pathway down the front. So first the back chakras, if you like, you're receiving energy. So they open up first. So you're receiving the grace, in each of those chakra points. So that's more about introspection, healing, personal awakening. That's your path of enlightenment. And then your path of embodiment, being in the world, but at the same time not of it. This is the descending journey. These chakras these are the expression chakras, if you like. Clear thinking, wisdom, clear speaking, truth, clear compassion, and the compassion, it's not like just for my religion, just for my tribe, my soul fam, that's not compassion. It has the compassionate heart is everything. And so it's the underlying principle, the unified field. And then if you pass those tests, then it comes down to solar plexus, and you're starting to give some kind of spiritual power in the world. But you're not giving that too early, because you'll probably screw it up. So don't ask for the spiritual power too early before, the heart is open. And then it comes down, lower chakras, more a radiated body, second chakra. So your body becomes what they call in Qigong and Tai Chi a light body. This means even the cells are a reflection of very pure energy. And so that's as you work towards your sainthood, your Buddhahood, your embodiment of the principle of consciousness. And of course, down back to earth, back to the base. And then that's really when the power of your soul purpose starts to take shape, So this is a up to the mountain, down the valley again kind of journey. There's a great book, I really recommend. I think it's called My Time with Himalayan Masters. Actually, there's two, and then there's one called Apprentice to a Himalayan Master. And in it, the yogi, he goes to the Himalayas as a teenager, and this is a book written by a guy called Sri M, S-R-I-M. Now, it was tricky for him to do his spiritual awakening journey, but this whole biography is amazing. And he talks about his time in the Himalayas, where his master gives him certain abilities called siddhis, and he has this incredible clarity, and him and his master hardly sleep. They just meditate in front of their fire, their dhuni, through the night, just very pure energy. And then, of course, very disappointing to him, his master says, okay, your time is up, time to go back to life, back to reality, down the Himalayan mountain. And of course, he doesn't want to, understandably. But he describes coming down the mountain from the Himalayas back into everyday society. And he said the lower and the closer he got to the villages and the cities, the more the peace went, the more his heart started to close, the more these abilities started to fade away. Some stayed. So it's tricky awakening in not only a village or a Western culture, a city culture, but here we are. So then the idea is, how can we, be in the world, but not of the world at the same time? And so this is the spiritual task. My master in India used to say, head in the forest, body in the city. In other words, or the mountains, So it's a job of concentration. It's a job of learning to turn your consciousness, your awareness away from the program of the mind. Me, I, this is what my parents expected me to be. This is my religion, my society, my upbringing, all this conditioning, being born of the flesh. And so that's why we meditate. We're literally training our awareness, third eye really, to hold steady until the operating system changes. The viruses start to become lifted from the being. As Eckhart Tolle calls it, the pain body starts to become healed. So that density in our vibration doesn't put us to sleep, into unconsciousness too much. And so then there's the two pathways for this. Jnana yoga means the knowledge of the self, introspection, and devotion, knowledge of the divine. And so both of those places lead to the same place. They transcend those practices. You know, Nigzagadanta Maharaj, great Indian saint, said, if you look into the nature of God, eventually you find yourself. If you look into the nature of yourself, eventually you find God. So these two themes separate until you go through the Zen called the gateless gate, and then the what those two things are become the line between them becomes more blurred. So here we are. So then how's your mind tonight? Mine is I have mine my mind is I have a name for it. It's called a bloody nightmare. But my soul is beautiful. So how do we pay attention to the soul? These are the spiritual practices. I'm asleep. The whole world is asleep, Trisha. But if you mean physically, then that's fine. Enjoy your sleep. So these are the practices. Either focus on yourself, not personality, the self, the stillness. So that, you know, Zen, Taoism, Jnana Yoga, come back to the center. A path of devotion, path of love, come back to giving your mind to God. You know, usually through prayer, mantra, visualization. Carl Jung was wrong, by the way. Carl Jung, I don't know the full quote, but I'd have to look into it. Maybe it's a misquote, but he says you don't become enlightened by imagining beings of light, only by, you know, making the unconscious conscious. But actually, in most of the traditional paths, like Tibetan Buddhism, they imagine beings of light, which makes the unconscious conscious. So it still works. Okay, so take a moment. Pay attention to the stillness at the center of the being, if, you know, that's your thing. Or recite the prayer or the mantra or a divine name, and you can visualize a divine being like the Buddha or Christ or Mary or Guan Yin. That's path of devotion. But those are just doorways. They're not the thing. They're the practice, not the, you know, the whisking the eggs. They're not the pancake. So you're doing your mantra, you're looking at the stillness. The mind says, okay, what now? This is the mind trying to escape again. There is no what now. There's just the practice and what you learn by doing. Like what you learn in 5 minutes? No, what you learn for the whole of the rest of your life. Spoiler alert, you learn that you don't know anything. And then the mind goes quiet. And finally, a knowing that transcends the mind arrives. So, yeah. So, the question is, I can always go to a lovely space, golden comfort, warm and safe, but I know never get any higher. So, as long as you don't have a problem with that, neither do I. What's been asked in that question or statement is very powerful, actually. You know, my master, Taoist master, he used to say, "Don't become a spiritual junkie." So, you know, Spiritual junkie means I want to get high on my own supply. So I want to escape constantly, going higher, going higher. And this is probably a very important part, you know, going up to the mountaintop for many people, because you want to imprint on your nervous system and your mind that there's more than just your humdrum, boring, physical, going through the motions, 9 to 5. There must be more than this. You know that. That's why you're on the path. So there's an escaping. But then after a while, you start to discover during the kirtan, you know, I was blissed out and now I've gone home and I just hate my partner. I'm worried about the debt. I'm worried, you know. So we've come back down again. And so whatever spiritual high we can get, whatever technique we use for that, we realize we always have to come down. But slowly, slowly, we're just opening to our multi-dimensional nature. So we don't use a spiritual trampoline anymore. And so we can, you know, when your chakra system are more aligned and peaceful, there's this kind of multi-dimensional awareness where your body can be in the world and you can go about your physical life, but there's a kind of deep transcendent peace that is very available to you. Yeah, the Upanishads describe it as the yogi is with a, like it says, like a tortoise withdraws itself into its shell. The yogi is able to withdraw their consciousness at will into that space. So, but that's a process. Yeah, so don't worry so much about getting higher. You know, you can do your prayers, your Gregorian chanting, your Kundalini, your plant medicine, whatever it is, but you know, build up the foundation of your being so that you can remain embodied, you know, at the same time. So as we go into this area, just invitation, you know, maybe repeat a divine name, hold the image of that divine being in your mind's eye. This will purify your third eye. It starts to raise the level of your consciousness. And it gets you used to holding that level of consciousness and awareness. I also want to open up the microphones now. So if anyone wants to speak a question or just share an experience, you know, this is your space to do that also. And yeah, there's a time that it feels like hard work, you know, like building a business or, you know, whatever we're doing. Always requires some struggle, you know, for most people to begin with. And then one day it just starts to flow. So, but to make that to make the answer simpler, to get hopefully give you something for, you know, so it's not too vague. It's like well, a lot of the practices we adopt, they're not really householder practices, as far as I can see. Like say Kundalini yoga, kirtan, really beautiful, but our mind comes back, and so the question starts to be, how can I make every moment of my life practice? And so I'm not holding on to a high, a transcendental experience, you know, and then I'm not running away from the painful experience, the shutting down experience. And so then there's two pathways to carving through that. So one is the jnana yoga, who are my practice. So they would ask, you know, a path of the mind, who is suffering, who is finding this hard, and then there's the coming back to the self. They will call it the self. And then my path of devotion, is like, you know, give your mind to God. My teacher used to say, you know, so people would say, how often you meant to practice? And he said, whenever your mind is active. So it's like, all the time then. So then there's two main practices. One is the Taoist practice, which is called constant contemplation. So the life is hard appears. Hello, life is hard. How are you today? Nice to meet you. Come and sit down with me. So life is hard appears. And then we might notice that the life is hard experience is made worse by our thinking. So debt appears, ill health appears, relationship problem appears, and that's usually something of a manageable problem. But what we suffer from is thinking about that. Oh, this means I'm a bad person, they're a bad person, this is going to turn out this way. And so our own mind attacks us quite viciously, creates hell on earth for us, not because of the problem, but because the way we're reacting to the problem, the emotional responses, the condition. And that's the hellish, that's the worst hell. So it's like, oh, what if this problem appears and I don't think so much about the problem? And then it's terrifying at first. It was like, I know, but I need to find a solution to this. So the inner child is freaking out. And so I think maybe one answer to that is it takes as long as it takes to realize the mind isn't that useful for solving problems outside of like, where's the knife and fork? That's, you know, the mind's useful for that. You know, what's the kitchen sink and what's the toilet? You know, it's useful to have a mind to know the difference. But big problems, who am I, how to solve this problem, how to think outside of the box, the mind's not that useful. And so slowly we build up a relationship with something that is not the mind, and we could call that God. You know, Christ calls it the divine will, and then Lao Tzu calls it the Tao. And slowly we stop fighting against the problem, and then we relax in the face of the problem, and then we realize the problem isn't a bigger problem as what we thought it was. And then our mind's clear enough and we might receive an answer, or we might see some kind of miracle start to operate in our life that moves the problem out of the way in ways we couldn't imagine. And then we start to build the faith of the mustard seed, and we start to realize there's some kind of force that is beautiful in this universe, and it loves us more than we can imagine. But we have the free will to hand over the reins, which is the symbology of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna, the higher self, the divine, is actually got the reins of the chariot that Arjuna, the little self, the warrior, is actually riding in. And so slowly we're like, oh, okay, this operating system is creating most of my problems with its mind, with its neurosis, with its trauma. That's the problem. That's the big problem, not this. And so, you know, but it's a process of you know, all the spiritual paths, they're just called paths of surrender. Whether that's surrender, they call that let go to the Tao, whether that's surrender to the divine will. And at first it terrifies us, because what if that is a cosmic arsehole? You know, what if God is awful? What if he's going to crucify me? What, you know, what if he was as bad as my abusive parent? What then? And so we're terrified that if we let go of the reins, that we might find out that this cosmic parent wants to crucify us and put us through terror and torture. It takes a little while. So the peace starts to come. The no struggle starts to come when we finally just learn how to let go of our life and just be in this Wu way, they call it in Tao, effortless living, just responding, feeling the flow. What do I need to say? Where do I need to go? And that's when the suffering starts to go. When we change the operating system over and discover we're not here to fight life. Like, I'm here to destroy life, overcome, yeah, high five, pump in the air and all that, you know? We're here to surrender, to let life take care of itself as us, through us, to us, you know. Wow, so easy. And so that is this changing from fear of life, to the operating system, sometimes called love. You know, he who dwells in love dwells in the divine, and the divine in them. You know, Christ said this. To a peace that transcends our understanding, means thinking. And so that's when the struggle lessens. But it's painful. Yeah, it's a great. So there's a part of us we're working on our individual healing. So, you know, of course, serene mind, open heart, a healthy body to some degree, but that's not it. That's just clearing out the cup, cleaning the cup. And so the divine essence, the wine, you know, can be added without the pollution. And so we could say that for me personally, I think the highest path, surrender the heart, surrender the mind, surrender the body. You know, Christ says this also, highest commandment he gave, give your mind, your body, and your soul to the divine. Just hand it over. And then not because I said so or it says in a book, but experiment with it. How do I feel when I do that? What happens in my life? So yeah, that's generally the path. But we can't do it like that because there's too much fear in us. And so we have to find out that, you know, that is the way experientially, which is the faith of the mustard seed, the slow opening, the slow learning to trust. That usually happens with some really intense experiences where we're put in a position where who we are, the little self, can't solve it. Big illness, you know, big debt, big something we can't figure out, can't do. And we finally, okay, your will. I can't. This is beyond me. And then something beautiful can happen. It usually takes the big, scary life situation to take us to that place. Does that help? Doing a mantra, it can't turn on us. You know, it's busy.
Yeah.
You've given the barking dog a bone. And so that's the power of those practices. It quiets the mind. Yeah. Which is a healing process.
Yeah.
That's all of life. The life functions without a mind, you know. Lao Tzu says that, you know, nature never hurries, but everything is completed. In other words, the nature doesn't, a tree, as far as we know, of course, mycelium networks, all that, but doesn't seem to have a thinking mind. So it's free just to be a tree. And like St. Francis of Assisi said, humans are like that. But we have this individual will. Will I be like nature? In other words, the natural expression of life without getting in the way with a mind? Or will I choose to be the me, the separate to nature, separate to the divine, separate self, trying to run everything? And that's the suffering program. I
Yeah.
I was very pure when I first started the path. Like I'll suffer through this headache for 3 days. And then my partner at the time, she'd just take painkillers and she'd be happy. And I'd be like, no, I'm going to be spiritual and not take painkillers. I'd
Mm.
suffer for a couple of days. And I was crazy back then. So, so my God, first sign of a headache, smack me up, give me some paracetamol, something, get rid of this so I can meditate. So I remember I was in Thailand and we were visiting this forest temple where these incredible monks were there. It was a Guan Yin temple, and sometimes they would share bits of food with us, from their rations, which was such an honor. And I was sat with one day, and he handed me over a little drink he had. Like I was, wow, wow, these amazing guys. And it was remember in the news agents, you could buy these energy shots, which are the worst chemical drinks in the world, like nitrous shots. And he had one of those before he meditated. So it's like, we have this puritanical idea, like not that I would take that, I'd be climbing the ceiling, but you know. And then I remember once I was lying in the bath and I beat myself up for drinking coffee for years. It's like, oh, not pure enough. Even though I know coffee makes me feel great. I think it helps my ADD or something. It's like medicine for me. And I was lying in the bath one day and I was like, oh, my guru, my teacher in India would be so ashamed of me, like in my thought spiral. And I'm
Mm.
listening to a story of him in India, and the guy is talking about them sitting on the beach with him, meditating. And they got to the end of the meditation, and he says, okay, I'm going to make you all some coffee. And Nescafe as well, granulated coffee. I was like, I've been feeling guilty for 5 years. And then there was the Shaolin monks, I mentioned this before, the Shaolin monks, when it's winter, to keep warm, they have this special brew that they've created. Um, and it's three heat teaspoons of Nescafe with teaspoons of honey. And they, they stir it into a paste and it keeps them warm through winter. So, so it's, whatever you want to do is fine, follow your way, but yeah, just experiment and find out what's true for you. I mean, I was so relieved when I was in hospital with my lung infection. The pain I was in was off the charts, and those painkillers for me were a lifesaver. And they also noticed some of the nurses that are more spiritually inclined in hospitals. They noticed that as people reach the end of their life and they start to give them the stronger painkillers, like when they don't do that, their transition is very painful and they're in a lot of problem. But as often when they give them the stronger painkillers, that's when they see angels around them, and because they're so deeply relaxed and open. So we have a Western mindset that is quite puritanical. And then all I'm saying is just find your own way. But my path is just I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy, relaxed, open, and so whatever it takes to do that, you know. So yeah, sorry, not a definite answer to you, but so just finally on physical pain, um, I had a really bad back for 3 months, and I pulled it doing Tai Chi, ironically, and so I'd have to lie down for a period of time through the day, and so I would pray, show me how to lie down. And then I'd just know what position my body would need. I'd just feel
Mm.
into it. And then when I had my lung problem in hospital and it was just coughing and coughing and couldn't sleep, I was in a lot of pain, show me how to lie down. And it literally, I could feel like, oh, put my hand there, on my face, and the cough would go. So that listening, deep listening, that can guide us through pain. I'm having surgery on my tooth, and I don't know. I'm waiting to hear off the hospital you know, abscess in the jaw, all that stuff. So I'll let you know. I will definitely be taking painkillers. Previous insight chat about we remind me of a saying, we're not the mind, we're not the thoughts and emotions, nor are we the body, or we are the one who observes. Beautiful. That's so true. And so, yeah, it's looking into, that's the Jnana yoga approach, where you use the intellect to destroy the intellect, you know. It's really useful. And it's kind of the up path, true self. But it can be useful to re-engage the mind as well, but as an instrument of the soul as opposed to of the ego. And that's where we get our insights, you know, which way should I go? And the thought appears, or you know, something like that. So yeah, but it's very true. There's an observer consciousness. And then this is like connected to these chakras, you know, ultimately. And then eventually, you know, how do I integrate that? You know, how do I be in my body with that is a beautiful part of the journey as well. So yeah, thank you for that, Art. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. So this officially it brings us to the end of the session. But as ever, you know, no pressure. If you want to hang and you know ask more questions, more than welcome to do that. And if you want to go about the rest of your evening, please feel free to do that as well. And if you're leaving now, you know, enjoy your evening. And if you're staying, feel free to share experience or ask questions. Yeah, and I'm not a disciplined person. I'm just, you know, I'm just a person who hates to suffer. But so it's like, so I have to do the practice or I suffer, you know. It's that simple for me. Just further on what Nina shared as well around physical pain. So it's not been mine has been psychological pain in my life, you know, depression, panic attacks, these kind of things have been my teachers. But then what I noticed those times where I have been, see you soon, Trisha. Yeah, lovely to see you. So the times I have had physical pain, what I notice is there's usually an invitation to be with it in a certain way. In other words, if I'm pissed off that I'm in pain, that creates tension, which creates more pain. And if I don't want the pain too much, that seems to add to the pain. But somehow there's this, you know, what I was speaking about, the observer consciousness, there's a kind of a state of being which allows me to be with certain types of pain. And sometimes miracles can happen. Like I had what they call a COVID headache in one of the, you know, the COVID, the return, the second, you know, the second, the COVID, the revenge, like the second, you know, like running of it. And I was in bed and my friend who'd had it had to go to hospital. The pain was so intense and I felt this headache coming on. And so I just prayed, you know, okay, how do I meet this? And so I laid in the most deepest relaxed version I could of my being. And this it went from pain to an awareness of watching the pulses in my nerves, in my nervous system, and dropped even further. And then I was in this place of intense stillness and bliss. And I was watching the energy running through my nerves, but I was in a state of just absolute bliss. So I know things like that are possible. And that was an amazing journey. You know, I said to my friends afterwards, I missed my COVID. I felt so amazing. I felt so alive when I had to surrender, when I had to drop deep or whatever it was, you know. So yeah, so there's an invitation. How do I meet this? How do I meet this? You know, my
Like,
psychological pain was so bad once, Nina, you know, that I I was thinking about putting myself in hospital because I was having a psychosis in relation to an allergic reaction to a medication I was on to take tooth pain away. Um, and I remember it was horrible. All I was having was visions of me taking my life in terrible ways, and that was for 3 days nonstop. It was like living in hell. And eventually I decided to drive to the ocean because I knew I needed to get into out my flat. I was quite worried about, I was watching this happen inside of me. And so I decided to drive to the ocean, sit there, and I sat there with all my windows up in my car, and it was summer, and I was pouring with sweat, and it was just to try and feel something because I felt so numb. And anyway, so I just thought I'll phone 111 and just see what they say. And of course, they said go straight to A&E, just book yourself in, which I did. And anyway, long story short, they said come off the medication immediately, so we could stay in A&E till you feel okay. And the medication faded away, and I started to feel okay after a few hours. And I asked God, where were you when in that hell? Where were you? And the voice said, who do you think told you to phone 111? And so sometimes that voice is very faint, but it's still there guiding us, guiding us. Just take this next step, just do this next thing. So even when we're in a lot of pain, we can still sometimes listen deeply for that guidance system. So